and welcome to On Campus with Students for Life and Rock for Life.
Howdy, howdy.
That was Eric Whittington. Thanks for joining us this week on National Pro-Life Radio, and I'm Kristen Hawkins. Today we're going to be speaking with Peter Breen. He's the Executive Director of the Thomas More Society based in Chicago. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Kristen, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us this week. We really appreciate it. Hey, can you give us an update? We've been working together a lot about the Chicago, bubble zone ordinance that the Chicago City Council passed last year, and how it's really been affecting the pro-life activists in the city. We've had a couple of students who've been arrested. Can you give us an update about what's going on? What does this ordinance mean?
Sure. The Chicago Bubble Zone Ordinance is similar to certain other bubble zone ordinances around the country you might have heard about. Long and the short of it is that within the general vicinity of an abortion clinic, the front door, you cannot approach within 8 feet of someone to present a leaflet, a sign, or an oral message without the consent of the person that you're approaching. And this case, the one that Students for Life of America jumped on, that we're the lawyers defending the student in question, it was a case of a guy named Joe Holland. He's a grad student in chemistry at Northwestern, so he's got a PhD at Northwestern in chemistry. Mm-hmm. Great guy, regular guy. He was out there with his buddies because they go down from Northwestern every Saturday to the Planned Parenthood abortion facility in Chicago. It's a pretty big abortion facility, operates 6 or 7 days a week. Well-trafficked area, and Joe was one of the guys praying. So he was not sidewalk counseling. He's one of the prayer guys, and he was standing on the sidewalk praying, and one of the abortion clinic escorts thought that Joe was standing in her spot.
Because she has a spot on that public street as a volunteer
public sidewalk.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking, a place where people are walking their dogs, people are pushing baby carriages, the runners, and this is a busy part of the city of Chicago. There's a grocery store across the street. There's a Domino's next door. Very busy area. And so because she was unhappy with Joe, she decided to back right up to him. And so he was praying the rosary. He didn't engage her. She yelled at him a little bit, but he stayed very peaceful, very, very much focused on praying. He was praying the rosary. He's Catholic, and when they were done, he and his friends, when they were done praying, he was getting ready to go. They didn't really have anything to pack up, but they were just standing around on the sidewalk in another spot. Up pulls a cop, who promptly takes Joe into custody, puts him in the handcuffs, throws him in the back of the car, based on the word of the Planned Parenthood people that Joe had violated the bubble zone ordinance.
Huh.
Yeah. So multiple problems with this, and here's the thing. We had not had any trouble, really any appreciable trouble, with the bubble zone ordinance at that location. The cops had talked about it with our people. Everybody was following it right now. It was not diminishing the effectiveness of our efforts out there to sidewalk counsel, and all of a sudden, with no warning, Joe gets arrested, and then actually within 5 days, a guy named David Avignoni gets arrested. And David is a sidewalk counselor, but he was standing still, which is what you're supposed to do under the bubble zone, but he was talking with someone, and the Planned Parenthood folks didn't like the fact that he was talking with their clients, so they called the police on him, and he was also arrested on the spot. So we pretty much cried foul, because we said, look, we believe the ordinance is unconstitutional, but at the same time, these guys didn't even violate it. The only reason we could see, and they're not a danger or anything, the only reason we could see for them being cuffed, booked, fingerprints, mugshots, 5 hours in jail was pro-life intimidation. So it's intimidation of our people to keep us away from the abortion clinics.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you mentioned, this whole bubble zone thing, is unconstitutional, in my opinion, by far. And, these guys, has Joe and David, they've been doing this for a while, standing there and praying?
Joe's been praying out there for a few months. And I guess, I never really got to the end. Joe's case has now been dropped after the incredible attention put on this. Students for Life generated a lot of calls into the mayor's office, such that I believe, Kristen, the mayor stopped answering his phone.
Awesome.
I believe so.
I've been trying to get a number from them, give me an estimate of how many phone calls you all got. Awesome.
That's good.
Yeah, it just I think they stopped answering their phone,
Nice.
and so that's usually the sign. And it really when we went into court that day, we had been on Fox and Friends that morning, Laura Ingraham show later in the day. Went into court, and we are ready to go. I've got subpoenas out to Planned Parenthood, subpoenas to the city of Chicago. We're ready to get up there and really just come after these guys. And the city attorney walks over to me. She goes and talks. Planned Parenthood brought 3 people. They were loaded and ready too. The lady goes over, she talks to them, then comes over and says to me, just a few words, she says, counsel, we're non-suiting this case, which means dismissal.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah. No explanation, no nothing. And I really hope they do the same thing with David Avignoni's case.
Yes.
Which we're up next on David's case on Friday.
Okay.
So we got the date moved up on that. Just so
oh wow, that's an update for me. Okay.
Yeah, that's 2 days from today.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thanks.
Well,
Right.
I think Joe's case here is a testimony on how you, our listeners, can make a difference, and how easy it is to just make a phone call when you get an email from Students for Life America or myself or anyone, and it's make a phone call, because it can make a difference. And it does.
I love it. I love it. I was like sitting at my computer that day writing this webpage and sending out I sent out a text message alert to like 6,000 people, emails to like 20,000, and I'm like, this is grassroots activism, and I'm not even leaving my chair. And we had people calling, and then people were signing petition, and then we had people sending Joe thank you emails, and I had them all going to my personal email account, and we were printing them off, and we mailed them all to Joe last week. And so I was seeing all these thank you notes coming to Joe. They were just awesome. It was just awesome seeing the return and how you can make a difference, and by picking up the phone, just typing your name into, you can make a difference.
Yes. And so you don't have to, although we'd love it if you went to an abortion facility and prayed, but a lot of people are intimidated by that. But if you can just make that phone call, write that letter, sign that petition, things can happen.
That's great. That's great. Now, tell me a little bit, Peter. How is this how is this bubble law? How are they saying it's constitutional?
Well, here's the problem, and there are other pro-life organizations that have been trying to challenge bubble zones in various parts of the country. So the Thomas More Society, and like any attorney, we do not want to go to court and lose. So we have been very, very careful about the way that we are trying to construct an argument against the bubble zone in Chicago. The bubble zones generally were upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision in the year 2000, and that case was called Hill v. Colorado. Now today, if the court as composed today were to rehear this case, we very strongly believe that the court would decide it 5-4 in our favor. Because when you look at the way the court split, let's see, only 3 of the initial 5 who were in the majority last time are still there, and those are part of what you might call like the quote liberal part of the court. The key people who were in the dissent were pretty much the key name was Justice Anthony Kennedy. So he is considered the swing vote on the court, and the way the court lines up today, it would likely be the 4 justices, Alito, Roberts, Thomas, and Scalia, with Kennedy writing the opinion in our favor, because Kennedy was furious about this. You can read his dissent, and he was like, "Look, what is the deal here? It's one thing for us to." He went with reaffirming Roe back in '92 with the Planned Parenthood versus Casey. He said, "Look, we were okay with reaffirming Roe, but we were not there to shut down people's speech." And he was looking at this, going, "What are we thinking? Where we can single out an area of speech and shut it down entirely?"
Yeah.
As if that somehow could be in any way consonant with the First Amendment. You can't do it. But we're stuck with the Hill v. Colorado case until it is overturned. And if you watch the court, they're taking half as many cases as usual, so they're not overturning things right now.
Yeah, it's. I think John Roberts is. He's got a strategy he's implementing there.
Yeah,
on the court.
And hey, as a legal restraint and all that with the court, we want our courts to be a little more restrained, but at the same time, we need our First Amendment cases to go up there, because those cases, that's very, very important to us. And hey, not just to pro-lifers, now all these people that have participated in tea parties or other type of rallies for any issue at all, people are now realizing what we've known for a while, which is you have got to defend the First Amendment or you will lose it.
That's exactly right. And this is something, everyone should be concerned about. every single person, even, you know, when I talk to liberals and pro-aborts on the college campuses, I can always get them at least agree that I should have the right to be there on campus. And if they don't say I do, then I just call them a hypocrite, which makes them hate me even more. But, I mean, I always can get them to agree to that point.
Mostly, you have your few hardcore leftists that are for silencing speech, and it's too bad that they're being represented, you know, sort of in Chicago.
Yeah, is there anything, Peter, you know, just finishing up here, is there anything else our listeners can do about this?
Well, you know, we've got David Avignoni's case coming up on Friday, and there has not been as much media attention to that, only because it got moved up quickly. So it's kind of funny how the courts go in the city of Chicago. And I have to say, these two cases were handled differently than usual, and this is another point that maybe your listeners should know.
Okay.
Normally, if let's say you've got an open beer on the subway, you get written a ticket and you show up in an administrative court a month or two later. Our guys were actually arrested, booked, cuffed, and the whole 9 yards, which almost never happens in the city of Chicago unless there is an immediate danger. And these guys are not dangerous people.
And that's based on someone's word, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. They didn't even, as I understand it, the cop did not even review the videotape from the Planned Parenthood before making the arrest.
That's unbelievable.
Hey, isn't there a videotape of this arrest online somewhere?
Yes. You can go to thomasmoresociety.org. So that's More is with one O. It's thomasmoresociety.org. And we've got links to the video.
Yeah, that's great.
You can see us on Fox and Friends, too.
Yeah, and I think I put the video on arrestedforpraying.com, which is where I'm trying to get David's picture. We have Joe's picture up there right now, but we have an update on Joe's case, on David's case, a petition, and then we have the phone number for Richard Daley, the mayor of Chicago. So that's that's arrestedforpraying.com. So, Peter, thank you so much for all you're doing. We ran out of time as usual, but we really want to thank you for coming on.
But one more thing, Peter.
Oh, yes.
Real quick, your 3 favorite bands.
My 3 favorite bands.
Sorry, we didn't prep you this beforehand.
Okay, you didn't. You know, it's funny. My wife and I now totally listen to K-Love, so they're all Christian groups.
It's okay. We'll forgive you.
I know. Well, it's great. No, I mean,
that's a good thing, right?
Joking.
A few years ago, I would have just given you the typical pop bands, but yeah, I like all the. Really, Matt Maher was one of our.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I'll just give you that one, and then the rest of it, the K-Love playlist.
All right, there you go.
That's good.
And all that.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Peter.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
See you,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back with On Campus, a Students for Life.